Hey everyone, welcome to Willow's Whimsy. This is my series, Neecie's Many Musings, and it's an opinion piece. It can be on anything. Oftentimes it complements my series, Getting Sober, and I talk about different things. I'm going to try to keep this at a reasonable length. Excuse my parents, but I knew I was gonna cry, so I'm like, I am not gonna put a bunch of makeup on and all that. I'll just let it be raw. I in the series Getting Sober, you know, over the course of the year, I've alluded to, you know, who I used with and when I would go out and use, and that it's like I had two separate lives, because most of the time, you know, I lived in the suburbs, I had a job, you know, my children were never taken from me. I have a family who loves me, good friends, you know, people who work and are respectable and, you know, give back to society. And, did I say, yeah, I had a clean bed to come home to, clean sheets, comfortable bed, all that. And then, you know, that was my circle of light, my childhood friends. And then I had what I referred to as my circle of dark, because I was not a habitual user. For me, it was very, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, you know, minus this year of sobriety that I have and am so grateful for. It was, you never knew, like, I could go out on a bender and be gone for 3 or 4 days and then not do it again for 8 months. Sometimes it was only 3 weeks apart. Like, you just never knew. And when I went and used, it would always start out with me, you know, drinking. I would get the urge and I would tell myself it's going to be different this time. I'm going to go to the bar and I'm just going to have a drink. 1 beer. God, I loved my beer. And 1 turned into 2, turned into 3. And then, you know, you're loosened up, man. And the thought of my drug of choice would come in. You lose all your inhibitions. You lose all of your sense, you know. And so I'd make some phone calls and I'd go use. And it could be anywhere from, you know, 24 to 72 hours. And that'll be part of my story. I'm doing a series now on my story now that I have a year sobriety in. The people that I used with were, this is going to sound crazy, but I guess, yeah, I was, you know, time frames kind of elude me. This has been going on for so long, or did go on for so long. It's been longer than 5 or 6 years. Because I'm trying to think, what happened was, you know, I had been sober on and off since 2003 or 2004, and you lose track of people, and I didn't know who to call. And so, as crazy as this sounds, I would get in my car and I would go down to the Chicago Franklin area, and I'd just let people in my car, you know, so I could buy drugs. And some really heinous stuff happened as a result of that. And you would think that that would have stopped me from using, but it didn't. And then I would come back to my, you know, my other life. And one night I went over into an area that I had met someone. And I mean, I didn't really know where this person lived. I was just kind of looking for him. And this is how stupid I am, you guys. Oh my God. Because I'd be drunk off my ass. Yes, driving. And I stopped because I saw a bunch of guys sitting on stair stoop or whatever, and I got out and I asked them. I mean, they could have been anybody. Oh my God. And anyway, yeah, they said, yeah, we know someone, we can take you over there. And it was this guy's house. And this guy ended up being a huge part of my using for the next, 7, 8 years. And he is an Asian man. He was originally from Laos, has been here since the 70s. That'll be in my story, but he is a character. And in a way, I think that was my gods, protecting me, because I was safe there. And, I wasn't picking people up off the streets. And I met a girl about 2 years in who hadn't been around before. And around this time too, I talked about this years ago, because I think it was 2014 this happened, about a girl, Nanette, that I went to junior high school with, and we lost touch, and I had seen her when I was pregnant with my son, so this is 28 years ago. And that had been the last time I had seen her. And I was over at this guy's house all these years later, and there was a woman who came in, and I didn't recognize her at first, and it was at the tail end of a bender, and I went home, and I was like, it was on the way home that it occurred to me that was Nanette. And I saw her once or twice after that over there. I told her who I was, and she remembered me. We had been very, very close in 7th and 8th grade. She had moved away to her grandparents in Wisconsin, and I had went there with her to visit her. And anyway, blah, blah, blah. I realized it was her. I told her, the next time I saw her, who I was, and we never got a chance to really talk. And then, I went home again after a bender, and the next time I went out, this guy whose house I went over to, and this other gal that I had met, told me that she had been murdered. And it's you can Google it. I'll put the link to the article below. And it was devastating to me, because I talked about the fact that, one of the times I went over to her house in 7th grade, her father beat her with a spoon right in front of me, and I had never seen anything like that. And I didn't protect her. I was scared. I was kind of in shock that this was happening in front of me. And I had reached out to her mother after she passed away, and I do not have fond memories of her mother, and the phone call just sort of cemented that. There was no real regrets or remorse. It was all about her, this conversation. It wasn't about Nanette, although she did offer to give me some of her poetry, and I wish I would have taken her up on it. I never did. I think that those things are precious, and it is indicative of who the real person is, not the addict, But anyway, this is not about that. But that was the first experience. I've known a lot of people over my years of using who have passed away, but that was the first one, addict-wise, that really kind of hit me. Anyway, this gal, her name was Patricia, and she and I got closer. The thing is, with this whole circle of light and circle of dark thing, my MO was that once I was done, and I would leave. I'd just take off, and I would refuse to speak to these people. I would change my phone number. I was so ashamed and embarrassed of them and that I had had any connection with them. Like I said, most of them were street, you know, and it just, there was a lot of shame in it for me, and so I would cut them off. And I did that to her over and over and over. I did it to all of them, and some of them I needed to, you know. I am struggling right now. Well, let me just tell you more about Patricia. She and I really did have some conversations. She shared her life with me, and I had asked her once, I said, can I write your story? Because what I have realized over the last, 15 years or so is that for some reason, people are drawn to me. People who have stories that they want to get out, and they tell me and they share, and I hold them as like these treasures in my heart. And it's not just addicts. I mean, it could be anyone. And it's like these precious memories that people hold inside of them, and for some reason they share them with me. And I never did tell her story, but she was like, yeah, you can tell my story. So I'm going to try to keep this very, very brief. But so Patricia was Native American, and she was born in Duluth. I think her parents were fairly young, but they were married, and I think she was like 2 months old. Her mother was killed by a drunk driver, and her father never got over the loss, and he was devastated, and he basically gave Patricia up. I don't know if it was to his mother or her mother's mother, but I know it was Patricia's grandmother, and she lived on the reservation. And, for anyone who wants to stereotype anything, I've been to one of the reservations up in McGregor, Minnesota, and it's sad what's happening there with the drugs and everything. But I will tell you, years ago, when a good friend of mine is Ojibwe, and her mother lived up there on the reservation, and I can't tell you how many good times I had there, how I was welcomed and treated like family. And so people have stereotypes, and it's not all stereotype. These are real people with real hearts and lives and memories, and they honor their ancestors, which speaks to me because as a pagan person, that is a big part of my life. And now that both of my fathers have passed, that's huge for me. And honoring those who have gone before to give me this life, Anyway, but she went with her grandparents or grandmother. And unfortunately, her grandmother was a very bitter, very hard woman. She was very cruel to Patricia. And Patricia talked about how she would beat her and the horrible things that she would say to her. And Patricia was kind of wild, She was like me as a kid. We were adventurers, get ourselves into all sorts of trouble. And, I could relate to her wanting her father so badly, because even though I, was given a beautiful, loving situation with my grandparents when I was 5, I just wanted my mom and dad. You don't realize you're in the best place you can be, and you want what you can't have. And Patricia, unfortunately, wasn't put into a loving situation like I was. And so she yearned, for her father, and grieved the loss of the mother she never knew. And she was wild. She was a wild teenager. Her dad sobered up and came back into her life. And he was very active in AA, and he remained sober. He did raise Patricia, I think, from the time, she was a teenager. And I know that at some point, and I think she was pretty young, she had a couple kids, and I think they were all put up for adoption. I think there were 2 or 3, I don't remember. The youngest was her darling, and it was kind of weird because this woman that adopted her, Patricia, was on the streets, and I don't know, she was sitting somewhere and started talking to this woman, and this woman was talking about this beautiful little girl she had adopted. Turned out it was Patricia's daughter, so a connection was established, and I know that Patricia loved her. I also know that addiction is ugly and nasty, and she could not walk away from that. I don't know when she crossed the line, from just using to alcoholism, but she had a hard life. And I don't know if she was married or just with this guy, the father, I think, of all of her children. He beat her, and it was pretty horrible. But, she was, I think when you're abused from the time you're little, some people, they perpetuate that cycle. And she did in her relationships with men, and was not treated with loving hands. She was not treated kindly. She was not respected. And, it was just really sad. But anyway, she eventually left that guy, and she has just lived a life on the streets and crashing where she can. I mean, she's younger than me. I don't know. I think she's in her 40s now, or was. You could see it on her face, but I always thought she was beautiful. And she loved makeup, but she didn't wear it very often because she didn't have a lot. And, I like to do these crazy makeup looks. It's nothing to me to drop $50-$60 on an eyeshadow palette. And she'd be lucky if she had, a $5 Maybelline eyeshadow. And, but she was so beautiful when she could do it. And she loved that, and she was she was like a tomboy totally, but at the same time loved to look pretty. And, I don't want this to go on for too long, but she kept me safe. I'm so stupid when I'm using. It's just like, I'll walk into any situation. I'll talk to any person. Like, I can't believe I'm here, when I think about it. But part of the reason I'm here is because she would say, Denise, come on, back off, come on. And, she wouldn't let me go anywhere by myself, and just kept me out of some really pretty bad situations, or that could have been potentially bad. So I'm so grateful to her. And she used to tell me, you're my angel. Because I go on these benders, I'm spending all this money that I really didn't have to spend on drugs. And there were times we'd go into Walmart and I'd get her socks and a new toothbrush and toothpaste, and this guy whose house we would go over to, he never had toilet paper, and so I'd buy a big huge thing of toilet paper and I'd give it to her. I wouldn't give it to him. He'd sell it to people. Yes, there are people who will buy toilet paper. I know, it's crazy, because that wasn't my life, that wasn't me. And but then I'd leave her again. I'd be like, okay, I'm done. And I did try with her. I let her be on my Facebook. I don't know what I was so worried about, like that she'd post something on my page and people would know. Oh my God. she did try to contact me sometimes, and I know she was contacting me, to see what was up and if I was down, and I would ignore her until I was ready again, and then I'd call her, and I'd be drunk. And she never poo-pooed me for that, she never, like, she accepted it, but I think it did make her feel bad, that she was good enough for me when I was using, but when I was done, see ya, bye. And that's something I'll have to work through now. But I would always go back on her Facebook page. Over this last year, she texted me once, and I should have had this ready. I apologize. Oh, there's a big cat outside. Hey, dude. He's freaking out looking at me. I hope I kept this text now. I hope I didn't get rid of it. I have it. I'm actually going to screenshot it because I don't want to lose it. Hey, Denise, this is still my number. I said, hey there, how are you? She said, hi, I live on the north side now, and I got a new man. I said, cool, how long have you been over north? Going on 2 months, and I was up in Mille Lacs Lake for a while, but can't live in the country. Had to come home to Minneapolis. I said, yeah, I love the country, but couldn't stay full-time. Are you working? I had a dream about Noi a month ago, and he was this Buddhist guru in red flowing robes, laughing my ass off. I'm almost at 9 months clean and sober, so I haven't seen anyone in a long time. And she said, me neither, but I just been hitting the bottle mostly, not too much of the other. LOL. That's the last message I have from her. Like I said, her life was a life of couch crashing. I know she went home once in a while, to the reservation, and she loved her family, and she stayed with this friend of ours, the one that I talked about that I met, this guy who had the house. He had his own deal going on. He was wait till I tell you my story. He was a character. I have met characters along the way. Anyway, the thing is, when you think about drug addiction and you think about people living on the streets, you think about how dirty it is. You think about being cutthroat. You think about survival of the fittest and all this kind of stuff. You do think about hopelessness and helplessness and, of course, alcoholism, drug addiction, mental illness. What keeps a person in this cycle? Because she had a dad who got sober. She had been exposed to the program. He passed away, and she never got over that. And she never got over her longing to see him again. And, I think she had felt so betrayed by him, but she loved him. And, she had had 2 relationships over the course of my knowing her, and one of them was pretty bad. That situation was no good. And then she met this other guy that I never met. And, I had sobered up by the time that happened. And so I never met him. The thing about her that I guess I want people to know is she had a heart of gold. Now, she was an addict. She did some fucked up stuff to me. I did fucked up stuff to her. I talked about, how I would just leave and be like, see you, bye. And then, be ashamed and not want anyone on Facebook to see, that I knew her or anything like that. And so she did some messed up stuff too, but, chalk that up to addiction. And they say, hate the addiction, not the addict. And we just had some wonderful talks. She told me, she said, us Native Americans, Denise, we laugh. We love to laugh. And her Facebook page was hilarious. And she found the funniest posts and she would put them up. And she said, we laugh and we smile even when our hearts are breaking and even when we're in terrible pain. And that was her. I mean, she had so much pain and she smiled and she laughed and, I loved her and I cared about her. And when I sobered up, I did respond, to her texts. I would not take her phone calls. I couldn't. I really feel like I have believed in my heart that she would get sober. She was so intelligent. She was not dumb. She was not dumb. And she had a sense about her that the other addicts around us did not. And I just could relate to her. And, as far as my guilt, I don't have guilt about being sober, like really sober, not just in between benders. And I don't have guilt about that because I couldn't. And I'm struggling right now. I'll tell you why in a sec. But I do have guilt about the way that I treated all of these people. It's like they were there for me so I could get high. And I didn't care about what happened to them after. I didn't care if I was annoying them. They would go out and get the drugs for me and bring them back. Like, it was like I was this queen that came in from the suburbs and I was like, serve me. That's what I'm having guilt about. I'm having guilt about the fact that, I thought I was better. I'm not going to lie. I thought I was better. I wouldn't let myself actually say those words. I wouldn't let myself believe that about myself, but I thought I was better. And that's where the guilt lies. I know from my own experience that we cannot get anyone sober because out of that entire crowd, she would have been the only one I wanted any kind of connection with. And if I could have gotten her sober, I would have gotten her sober. But I know you have to be ready. And I think that some things are so deep-seated in people and their pain is so deep-seated that they can't rise above it. And I had things that she didn't. I had a loving family. I was raised differently, and I'm not this is not about the reservation. This is not about, please don't think that I'm because like I said, I have met so many loving, wonderful people. Her grandmother was abusive, and she had so much pain. So anyway, that is something that I need to look at. When it comes to making amends and things like that, I will not seek these people out. Why would I put myself back in that neighborhood, back in a situation where, and I don't even blame them, but someone might hand me a pipe and say, here, you want to hit? Knowing that once I do, I don't stop. I'm off to the races. And I can't, be around that. And these people all have good inside of them. No one, I don't want to say no one, very few people are truly evil. And, what was I going to say? I don't know. But I don't, when you're using, and especially when you do live a hard life like that, and it's about the hustle and, keeping things going and surviving, being in survival mode all the time. Misery loves company, and I don't think they would be intentionally trying to harm me, but I can't be around it. And I don't have to feel guilty about that. One time, after a particularly bad bender, I knew my kids wouldn't be at home because they always went to my sister's. You know, I would disappear and they'd figure it out relatively quickly. Mom's not answering the phone. She's not texting back. She took her location finder off. She's using. And we'll deal with that when I get to that part of my story. I just started a new series on YouTube, but, so they'd go to my sister. So I knew no one was at home, and I brought Patricia home, and we were both, man, it had been a hard one. We'd been hitting it pretty hard. Anyway, I'm a pagan, so I have a cauldron. It's a cast iron cauldron. It's not a huge one. It's about yay big, you know. And I threw some sage in there, and I lit it up, and, you know, we did the purification, and we both prayed. You know, she prayed to her God and I prayed to mine. We did that together, and we held hands and we cried, you know. That's kind of an intimate thing, and I don't talk about religion that much. I talk about spirituality because I'm not really religious at all, but I just think that especially bonded us, and I'm still bonded with her. I think it's one of the reasons I cared so much, and I really, really thought that she was going to make it out someday. But she didn't. I would go to her Facebook page because she had everything public, and I'd check in on her from time to time. And she had posted on April 7th that she had slept all day and didn't do anything, and that she was fine with that. She got some good rest, and I thought, well, that's good, you know. Sent out a little blessing to her. And then I checked about 2 weeks later, and there was nothing. And for some reason, last night I went to a concert. I went to see Beth Hart, who, wow, you guys, look her up on YouTube and hear her story, because she's an addict and she's in recovery now. But it was such a good concert, and we had to walk. We were in Minneapolis downtown, and we had to walk back to the parking ramp, and it was a scary walk. And it reminded me of things that I don't like to be reminded of. It just was scary, you know. And I used to walk through that kind of shit all the time and not care. Not a care in the world. I would have stopped and talked to people. Not this time. I was like, let's just get the fuck to the car. And I guess because I was thinking about recovery and I was thinking about addiction, you know, I thought about Patricia, and I went to her page. And her daughter had posted that her mother had passed away, and that she wanted to do a traditional funeral for her and had no idea where to start and needed help. And my heart sunk, and I start reading through the posts of RIP's Patricia and tributes to her. You know, she was very well, she had over almost 4,000 friends, you know, on Facebook. People loved her, and she was funny, and she always had a smile, and she was kind, and she tried to help people. And my heart is broken. I guess I always really thought that somehow I would see her again, and that, you know, she'd make it out. I don't know how she died. I did go look on her boyfriend's page because my first thought was that he killed her. And it doesn't look like that. Someone posted something saying, hey bro, call me. I'm praying for your girlfriend. So I think maybe it was natural causes. I don't know. She had a heart attack or a stroke. It was in the hospital, and she didn't make it out. You can't live that kind of life and not have physical consequences. And it puts things into perspective for me too. Quite frankly, the way I smoked, I can't believe I never blew my heart up and died. You know, that was my biggest fear, was that I'd die in that house. And my kids would know that that's how I went out. Like, I'm just really blessed to be sober. I had thought maybe I would not go to her funeral because I thought it'd be here in the cities and I don't want to be exposed to anyone. But it's out of town. It's about an hour away up north, and I thought maybe I could do that. I'm still going to see people, you know. I don't think I would see anyone I knew. Maybe one or two people. So I'm trying to decide if I'm going to go or not, but the only connection I have left to her is my cauldron. And so I thought I might go somewhere, try to find a private place in the woods somewhere with my cauldron. People be like, what the fuck? And burn some sage for her and talk to her. She really was a dear soul. She was broken. She had been harmed. She had been damaged. But she was a dear soul. And I am grateful I knew her and had her in my life. So this video could be viewed as a cautionary tale, but it's not. It's about friendship in the most unlikely of places. It's about setting boundaries for yourself, you know, but still loving someone. It's about seeing beyond the stereotype of an addict or a homeless person or a Native American. And just seeing the person's soul and their spirit, and knowing that yours connected with theirs, and that this was someone that you could call friend. So I'm going to shut this down and say thank you for watching. I'm sorry for the tears, but I wanted to tell her story. And if you are alone and you see this and you're using, pick up the phone and call Intergroup. There's an intergroup for NA and AA in every town. That's all you have to do is call them. They will tell you where there are meetings in their areas. Now, you may not find, you will find help. You may not find someone who's going to put you up in their home and take care of you. It comes down to the addict. No one else can do it for you. But you know what? If you want it, you can do it. You can do it. No matter how far down, you know, you've gone, you can do it. You are not alone. And that, she died because of her lifestyle. Whether, you know, it was that someone harmed her or whether it was just the wear and tear on her body from living the life she lived. She was kind, and she strove to make people happy and feel comfortable and loved, and wanted to make people laugh. And we did laugh. And please reach out for help. Please don't die. Please don't die. They say that the ultimate sacrifice with alcoholism and drug addiction is one of three things: jails, institutions, or death. And I know for sure she did some time in jail. And she died. So we're all going to die. But
I love that line in Titanic when Jack says to Rose, "You're gonna die an old woman asleep in your bed." That's what I want. I don't want to die in a crack house. I don't want to die on the streets or in my car while I'm out there using. I don't want you to either. So, get help, please. There's help. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I am going to shoot the introduction video to my story today, even though I already posted the first episode. We'll get that up. And blessings to each and every one of you. Thank you. Bye.